Om Tat Sat. Welcome to Gyan Bhakti. We are currently exploring the scripture Mysticism of Srimad Bhagavatam. Commentary is by my Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayananda Maharaj, narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So today we are going to start a plan for enlightenment, which is all of us. We all want that. But we will learn gradually through this holy scripture. Restored to his normal ethical sensitivity, the king was deeply concerned. Yesterday we studied about in yesterday's satsang how King Parikshit had put a snake on Shamik Rishi. So the king was deeply concerned about what he had done to the sage. The idea that he would soon die was of course shocking to his mind, but he was ready to accept his destiny. Then he decided that he would end his last 7 days by the banks of the Ganges, utilizing the 7 days for the attainment of enlightenment. So he made a very beautiful choice at that time. Since he had only 7 days, he decided to put it all on his spiritual effort. And he also proclaimed that he would not drink or eat anything, because that's not how he would die. He would die by the bite of the snake. So he did intense tapasya. At that point he was no longer a king, he became a sage, because he had so much purity filled and so much desire to walk on that path of enlightenment. A special place was prepared for King Parikshit besides the Ganges, and hundreds of sages assembled there when they heard that the king's resolve to remain there and practice austerity until death. So obviously this was a big news at the time, that the king, who had all the opulence and all the palaces, left everything and was at the banks of Ganges. And this is the place that I am telling you that I have visited a few times now, 3 or 4 times in India, and it is extremely holy, not very well known, but it is very pure. The vibrations are very pure, and still there is a lot of Bhagavatam Katha narrations going on there all the time. So at that time, by divine plan, great sage Shukdev ji is the son of sage Vyasa, who has composed all these scriptures. The wandering sannyasi renunciate, the son of Vyasa, appeared there and immediately was welcomed by all the sages, and they revered Shukdev ji. He only looked 16 years of age, so very good looking, very young, although mentally and emotionally he was a fully illumined and enlightened sage. So even very old sages would prostrate to him to learn from him. Shukdev ji was given a high seat above the crowd, and Parikshit offered his adorations to him, saying, "O great sage, the sight of you is a great blessing. Please be gracious and answer my question." So imagine King Parikshit knowing he has only 7 days to live. So what must be his condition, and yet maintaining his calm, being in that holy place among sages and saints, he asks this question of sage Shukadeva. He says, "Tell me, what should a person do if he knows he is going to die within a few days, and what should human beings do in general to promote their ultimate good?" So these questions, although they applied to King Parikshit, also apply to the entire humanity. Each of us will have to one day depart, and what should we do to do ultimate good? Shukadeva praised Parikshit, saying, "Your questions are wonderful. They are meant to benefit all of humanity. Most people are oblivious to the true purpose of their life. They seem to be unaware that death can suddenly overcome and devour them. But one who has become reflective and understood the true predicament of human existence must turn his mind to God, to Krishna. He must let his mind capture the glory of Krishna and dwell upon him alone. What that means by that is that in this scripture, Krishna is glorified. In Ramayana, Rama is glorified. In Devi Bhagavatam, the Devi is glorified, and so on. So, but it's reaching the same one Brahman, the same one God. So don't get confused when it says dwell upon him alone. It is whoever your Ishta Devata is perfectly fine. So Shukadev ji continued, since in this case Lord Krishna was there in his physical form as an incarnation on earth, at the end of Dwapara Yuga, my father sage Vyasa composed Srimad Bhagavatam, the story of divine incarnations, especially highlighting the story of Krishna. He related that scripture to me, and now I will relate it to you. So this is what the sage decided to do during the last moments of King Parikshit, and that is why the scripture is so profound. This setting in which Srimad Bhagavatam unfolds has profound spiritual meaning for all of us. Like Parikshit, every individual is a mortal personality and is going to die on one of the 7 days of the week. So we don't know which week, but it has to be in one of those 7 days, Monday through Sunday. No one has ever died on a day that is not within those 7 days. No one ever knows whether this is the week that will finish his mortal existence on this birth or which one. But this much is certain. One of the many weeks that are to come will be your final one on the earth as this personality. That is the divine law. No matter who we are, even Alexander, kings, palaces, all these material things have nothing to do with it. Doesn't matter how rich or poor we are. We all have to depart from this illusion we call the world process. So knowing the transient nature of your present personality, what should you do to prevent your soul from returning into embodiment again? Think about this. This is why we do so much satsanga together, because if we don't, we will continue to cycle in the meshes of life and death. So finding the answer to this question should become the most consuming thought in the mind of a reflective person. However, most people waste all their energy over the non-essentials of life, just wasting time watching movies, gossiping, entertainment, and yet while all this opportunity to spiritualize their life is fully available to them. Paradoxically, only a fragment of that wasted energy is sufficient to lead a person to liberation from the cycles of life and death. All your attainments in the world mean nothing. They are like sands blown by the wind of time. The only substantial attainment is to develop a mind that turns to God with profound absorption, bhakti, devotion, love of God. If that hasn't happened, then all our accomplishments are like a number multiplied by 0. It all becomes 0. It doesn't matter whether you bring this about by meditation, by knowledge, by devotion, by selfless service, or by combining all these things. The goal of life is to possess a mind that becomes one with God by the time of death, completely relinquishing all illusions. So that is the essential goal of life. This is the goal that every aspirant must prepare for every day, as eagerly and as wholeheartedly as did King Parikshit in the last days of his life. So this is the deeper meaning, and tomorrow we will go deeper into King Parikshit's questions to sage Shukadev ji. This is Swami Nikhilananda. Om Tat Sat.